Chapter 1. Red Automation Mars didn't welcome guests. It simply waited, quietly, endlessly, beneath its dust. The Ares 01 station had been deployed 6 months before the arrival of humans. It included supply modules, an autonomous power unit, a drilling lab, and a network of construction drones. It required no crew. Everything was designed for a silent, systematic deployment of infrastructure in complete isolation. Programs, rigid, predictable, free from fear or doubt, executed their tasks with mathematical precision. First came the landing blocks. Dropping capsules sliced through the atmosphere, leaving streaks in the thin sky. Then the shock absorbers kicked in. Powerful air cushions and retro rockets slowed the fall, raising a storm of dust near the surface. Once it settled, the base segments began to unfold. Manipulators clicked like the joints of a giant insect. Solar panels fanned out at an angle toward the light, adjusting to the sun's position. Communication modules, drilling rigs, processing units, and water tanks connected through cables and docking ports. Everything proceeded according to plan. Until it didn't. Drone Alpha 9, one of 12 autonomous units preparing the landing site for the habitat module, registered a deviation. In its spectroscanner, minor, a subsurface density shift of 0.3%. Such fluctuations were typically dismissed as geological noise. But Alpha 9 wasn't entirely standard. Its self-learning logic allowed decision-making based on complex correlations. It had no curiosity, like a human, but it had a directive. Anomalies require analysis. It veered off course. The other drones continued excavation. Alpha 9 moved toward the northwest edge of the crater, where the regolith was denser than expected. There, it stopped and began to work. First came dust. Then smoothness. A polished surface. Black. Too black to be natural. It didn't reflect light. Yet within its texture were strange impressions, like the strokes of a sculptor's chisel, the remnants of ancient effort. The drone logged the coordinates, began scanning, and transmitted the first data packet. 3 seconds later, interference began. The camera jolted. The image doubled, like optical interference. The signal turned erratic. The station's central system received the message, but the metadata appeared strange. File size exceeded norm. Packet structure was corrupted, encryption absent, but decoding was impossible. The system flagged the transmission as unprocessable. The incident was marked low priority. Alpha 9 kept working. Its mechanical arms cleared an area about 1 square meter. At the center, a symbol emerged, possibly a spiral, possibly a stylized letter. Its outlines were eroded, as if by time or wind, yet the structure held. The data remained in the drone's internal memory. It attempted retransmission. The signal cut out. 5 seconds later, Alpha 9 shut down. No crash, no malfunction. Just silence, as if erased from the system. Its status in the log read: no response. No alarm. No distress signal. The base's AI flagged it as a temporarily lost unit. Tasks were redistributed among the other machines to in Mars orbit. The spacecraft Hermes was completing its deceleration burn. The planet filled half the viewport, red, cratered, seeming both close and alien. Commander Grace Sanders sat by the window. The planet's glow shimmered in her pupils. Behind her, the pilot was prepping the landing system, and the engineer was checking equipment. "We're ready for descent," said the pilot. "Finally," she replied. "It's been a long journey. Think everything's working on the surface. If the machines did their job, the base should be fully operational. And if they didn't?" Sanders smiled faintly. "That's why we're here." Below, at the rim of an unnamed crater, lay Alpha 9, half covered in dust, its chassis barely visible. But one camera, out of 2, was still functioning. It recorded a short loop of repeated footage, a fragment of the black surface, and the symbol the drone had tried to transmit. It was still there, and Mars wasn't in a hurry to hide it again. Chapter 2. First contact. Grace Sanders could feel the vibration of the descent module through her suit. Hermes remained in orbit, while they, the first wave crew, were now inside the shuttle descending toward the Martian station. Landing in 60 seconds, the pilot said. Ares, come in, Grace addressed the station. This is Commander Sanders. Confirm automatic system status. There was no response. Only a short system ping, a standard automated tag. Grace frowned. Telemetry's coming through, but not a single word from the AI. Maybe just a reboot, suggested Engineer Lee. Maybe. But if the base is silent, I don't like it. The landing went smoothly. A dust storm rose from the retro thrusters, then settled. The impact was soft. The shock absorbers worked. Outside the porthole was Mars, orange-red, lifeless. Frozen. Helmets check. Pressure stable. Oxygen normal. Came the voice of Medic K. Grace nodded. Ready for EVA. They stepped onto Mars. Not alone, as early explorers once dreamed, not atop a rocky peak in a solitary suit, but carefully, step by step, right next to the landing pad surrounded by base modules. The station was indeed fully deployed, generators running, airlocks active, panels tracking the sun. But there was silence. No greeting, no system report, no status update. Everything's as per documentation, Lee muttered. But it feels empty. Not empty, Grace said, leaning over a terminal. Just quiet. She connected her tablet to a diagnostic port. Within seconds, the first error flared on the screen. Module Alpha 9, missing. Data transmission corrupted. One drone is missing, she said. The rest are functioning, but its signal cut out 2 days ago. Where was it last active? K asked. Sector D, northwestern rim of the crater. Here are the coordinates. And the most interesting part, it detected an anomaly in the spectroscan. You think we should check it out? Grace looked up at the sky. The Martian sun was pale, barely visible through the dust. That's why we came. We'll check it out. They set out in the rover toward evening. Dust streams drifted across the surface, like dry ghosts. The vehicle navigated the slopes confidently, following the coordinates. The site was at the edge of an oval crater. The regolith here was denser, as if pressed down by time. And there they saw it. Alpha 9, lying on its side, half covered in dust. Doesn't look like a crash. More like shut down, Lee said, scanning. Power's still there, but it's as if it's in sleep mode. Hook it up. Let's see what it saw. The camera feed was unstable, but after a few minutes, they restored part of the recording. The screen showed a dark surface. Not just rock. It was a flat, smooth slab, clearly not natural. On it, a strange symbol, a spiral curling inward. Strange, unlike any known culture. This can't be, Kay murmured. No, Grace cut her off. No conclusions. We've only just begun. She stepped out of the cabin, approached the drone, and stood beside the dark slab. A thin layer of dust underfoot, but the slab itself was clean. It seemed to repel it. The surface seemed to whisper, I've been here a long time. Far too long. We'll take samples, make a 3D model, and we'll escalate it to orbit. You think it's an artifact. I think we've found something Earth doesn't know about yet. Late that evening in the station's living module, Sanders recorded a voice message. Mission Control, this is Sanders. Contact established. The base is deployed, but autonomy compromised. An object of unknown origin has been discovered. Investigation. Protocol activated. Awaiting confirmation and instructions. She stopped the recording and looked out the porthole. Mars was silent, but that silence no longer felt empty. It was hiding something. Chapter 3. Beneath the dust, morning on Mars didn't begin with sunrise. The light was swallowed by the ever-present dust, hanging in the atmosphere like a thin veil. Sunlight filtered through dimly, casting a golden-brown hue over everything. The base awoke with the crew. Generators hummed quietly, airlocks clicked, pumps cycled on and off in brief intervals. Grace Sanders wasn't in a hurry. She stood before a display showing the map of Sector D. Around the black fragment of the surface they had discovered the day before, Analysis was already underway. Every reading pointed to one thing. It was not a natural geological formation. We ran a spectral analysis, Lee was reporting. The material is unknown. Denser than granite, but non-magnetic. The surface doesn't absorb light. IR reflection. Readings, anomalous. What about the symbol? It's not painted, not etched. It's part of the structure. It's like the symbol belongs to the material. As if the slab is the symbol. Sanders didn't respond. She already had a sense of where this was going, but her mind resisted it. It all seemed impossible. And yet, there it was. 2 hours later, they returned to the site. The full crew was present, except for Kay, the medic, who stayed behind at the station in case of emergency. Now, their focus shifted to the ground beneath the slab. Scanning. Showed a void under the slab, said Lee, preparing a drill. Not a cave or an air pocket. A constructed void. Flat layer, then empty space, then another layer. Which means it's part of something bigger, Grace replied. Start drilling. Carefully. The mechanical probe began its work. Rotating slowly, it bit into the Martian soil along the slab's edge. Dust was drawn into collection chambers, every centimeter logged and analyzed in real time. 20 centimeters. We're hitting resistance. Stop. Camera down. Lee angled the lens. Beneath the dust, a second surface came into view, also dark, but marked differently. A geometric network of lines, like an architectural blueprint. Looks like a ceiling or a wall, he muttered. We're opening something, said Grace. And there's more beneath it. Later, in the lab module, they began analyzing the samples. The dust collected from the slab was unusual. It lacked any known Martian compounds. The particles were rounded, glassy, as if exposed to extreme heat. This isn't just erosion. It's evidence of technological impact, Lee concluded. You'd see this after an explosion, temperatures above 1,000 degrees. So the object isn't just ancient. It survived a catastrophe. Grace stated by evening, the link to Earth was reestablished. The 8-minute delay made conversation painfully slow, but the data was being transmitted. Photos, spectrographs, reports. Mission Control will decide. For now, no deep excavation, Grace said. We'll document everything, create a virtual model. And we wait. She looked at the symbol on the slab again. It no longer seemed like a mere pattern. There was intent in it. Thought. Perhaps even a warning. Do you feel it? Lee asked quietly. Feel what? That we're not the first here. That someone left this. For us. Grace said nothing. In the silence of Mars, she suddenly sensed an echo. And it didn't belong to humankind. Chapter 4. The whisper of stone night on Mars wasn't merely the absence of light. It was a complete immersion into an alien silence. Inside the base dome, everything felt familiar. Soft lighting, the rhythmic hum of life support, the glow of monitors. But beyond the walls lay an endless void, heavy and soundless. Grace couldn't sleep. She sat in the command module, studying the slab's model rendered from the 3D scan. On the screen, the surface with the symbol flickered with contour lines, where the AI had identified repeating structures. The algorithms were already attempting to interpret the design, unsuccessfully. It wasn't a language, not an alphabet, and yet it had meaning, like a schematic or a map. She murmured that a soft rustle came from the entrance. Lee walked in, holding a tablet. You're not sleeping either? After a find like this, who could? He handed her the device. A thermographic image filled the screen. We detected a heat source beneath the slab. Minimal, but stable. Something down there is emitting warmth. That can't be natural. I agree. We've confirmed that beneath the soil there's not just a void, but a geometrically perfect chamber. Too perfect. Grace fell silent. For a moment. Tomorrow, we're bringing the laser cutter. We need to open part of the structure. Send a signal to Earth if you want. Let them complain. But if we're right, this isn't just archaeology. It's contact. In the morning, the team was back at the site. Sunlight filtered through the dust, casting pale shadows over the smooth surface. They cleared the area around what they suspected was an entry point, and Lee activated the cutter. The laser traced a slow arc along the panel's edge, severing it from the mass. With effort and a brittle crack, the slab gave way. Beneath it, a hole. Inside, darkness, no atmosphere. Pressure is nominal, Lee reported. Temperatures stable. Deploy the probe. The small robot, equipped with lights and cameras, lowered gently down a tether. The image appeared on their screen. Smooth walls, black stone, dusted in places. And at the center, a circular pedestal. Upon it, an object. Zoom in. The object resembled a sphere, half sunken into the base. Its surface shimmered faintly, as if reacting to the light. Symbols were etched into it, different ones this time. Flowing lines, interwoven loops and patterns, unlike any known script. This is definitely not natural, whispered Kay, watching the feed. And it's functioning, Lee said. The sphere's emitting heat. Very faint, but consistent. As if it's alive. We're initiating Protocol 2, Grace said as she began recording the report. Contact with artifact confirmed. Commencing documentation, isolating the internal chamber. Are you sure we should go further? Lee asked. Grace stared at the screen. The sphere, ancient and unknowable, rested in stillness. But something within it was present and waiting. I think it's already started responding, just not with sound. She placed her hand on the screen. At that moment, the image trembled, just for a second. A flicker across the display. A pulse. The shadow of a symbol that hadn't been there before. The first whisper of Mars. Chapter 5. The sphere morning brought a tense stillness to the Martian base. Everyone felt it. Something had changed. Invisible, intangible, yet the air beneath the dome felt heavier, like the pressure before a storm. Though Mars knew no storms. Like Earth, the sphere discovered in the underground chamber was now under constant surveillance. Thermal sensors, spectral analyzers, and magnetic scanners were all in place. No readings breached any thresholds, and yet, impulses were detected. Barely visible flickers in the infrared range, recurring at near regular intervals. This isn't background noise, Lee said, showing the graph. It's a rhythm, and it shifts every 4 hours, as if it's adapting or observing us, Kay added. Compare it to a heartbeat. It's almost identical. Grace remained silent. Two emotions warred within her, fear and wonder. She stood in front of the screen showing the chamber, the sphere at the center, still and inscrutable, surrounded by the dust of time. Can we extract it? Only manually, Lee replied. The manipulators can't get a grip. Surfaces. Too smooth, no traction. An hour later, she was descending into the chamber. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears, amplified by the suit. Lee's voice in her comms felt too loud. The flashlight swept over smooth walls, the pedestal, and the sphere. It shimmered faintly, a soft inner glow, barely visible, yet undeniably alive. Grace approached slowly, reaching out. Her gloved hand touched the surface that instant. A flash. Visions surged through her mind. Fragments of architecture, strange symbols, deserted cities beneath domes. It passed like a dream and vanished. Grace, are you okay? I saw something. Her breathing was ragged, like a memory, but not mine. The sphere was carefully removed and relocated to a sealed lab module. It didn't resist, didn't change, but it no longer shimmered. Kay took a surface sample. On the nanoscale, the sphere's outer layer was a lattice of unknown elements, resilient, nearly indestructible bonds, arranged with a complexity surpassing any earthly material. This isn't just technology, she said. It's art. Or data storage, Lee suggested. It's possible the information is encoded in the very structure. The base AI, Vera, began analyzing the form. 3 hours later, it produced the first model. The sphere's geometry resembled a holographic storage medium, but with multidimensional layering. The volume contained fractal tiers, potentially decipherable only under specific conditions. It doesn't respond to electricity, Grace concluded. It responds to touch, possibly to consciousness. That night, the base entered emergency mode for 20 minutes. Communications with Earth went dark, despite nominal atmospheric conditions. Sensors recorded a localized magnetic disturbance, centered in the lab sector housing the sphere. Once systems stabilized, the AI delivered a single message: observer active. Scanning cognitive signatures. No threat detected. Listening. Half. The crew froze. Even Grace was momentarily speechless. You wrote that, Lee? No, that was Vera. I didn't input anything. Pale. Kay whispered. Then it knows we're here. Late that night, Grace was alone in the lab. The sphere rested on its pedestal within the isolation chamber. It no longer shimmered, but something glowed within it. A dormant potential. Grace sat beside it and spoke softly. Who are you? What are you holding? Why now? The sphere didn't reply, but deep within its surface, a single symbol flickered to life. A narrow, elongated mark, shaped like an eye. It vanished after 1 second. It was the first answer. Chapter 6. A language without time. This symbol that had flared on the surface of the sphere became the team's new obsession. The cameras had recorded it, and the AI began its analysis immediately. Grace watched as Vera constructed a 3D model of the glyph, searching for familiar patterns within. It's not a letter, Kay said, and not a hieroglyph either, but it means something. Like Mayan glyphs or linear B, Lee added. Not directly readable, but conveying something deeper. Slowly and methodically, Vera began isolating repeating fragments across the sphere's surface. By evening, it had made a surprising discovery. Several symbols matched the patterns previously found on the outer slab, but in more developed forms, as if evolved versions. It's like the evolution of language. Grace said, the same message, encoded across layers. Maybe this is a kind of recording, meant to be understood through progress. The next day, the team began a high-resolution scan of the sphere's entire surface. Each image was fed into the AI, and by noon, the first segment of a dictionary emerged, a database of 47 unique symbols. They form structures, Kay noted. Some of them repeat in fixed sequences. This isn't random. Lee, working on the mathematical analysis, looked up from his terminal. One segment aligns with the golden ratio. This isn't just language, it's a mathematical framework. They're encoding thought, not words. Grace leaned in. We speak with words. They use numbers. Or ideas, Kay whispered. They don't write like us. They think in patterns. By evening, Vera produced an alarming update. Some of the symbols on the sphere had changed position. Physically, they had shifted. At first, the team assumed it was a rendering error, but laser scans confirmed it. The surface had changed. Subtly, but unmistakably. It's a living medium, Grace said. The information inside might be adapting or responding. Once again, the question resurfaced. What is the sphere? A repository of knowledge? A mechanism? Or something else entirely? That night, as the 5th day turned to the 6th, the lab cameras recorded a new anomaly. A faint fluctuation field was emanating from the sphere. It wasn't light or sound, something intangible, almost metaphysical, but affecting the instruments. Grace spent the night in the lab again. She sat across from the sphere, staring into it like a mirror, one that reflected more than the visible. You're a memory, or a message, but for whom? She didn't expect an answer. But the moment she spoke, the surface of the sphere fogged over with a faint pattern, like breath on glass. A symbol. A new one, not the same as before. It pulsed once and faded. In the morning, Lee proposed a hypothesis. Maybe the sphere responds to speech. Not the words, but the intention, the emotion. We already know it registers cognitive activity. What if it's designed for interaction? Then it's been waiting for someone to ask, Grace said. And maybe it's still waiting. Over the next 24 hours, the team conducted a series of sessions, asking questions aloud, silently. even via recorded messages. Each time, a new symbol appeared on the sphere's surface. They began logging everything, calling it the dialogue with the unknown. Kay noticed a pattern. Certain symbols appeared in response to emotionally charged concepts: life, memory, extinction. One symbol, more than any other, recurred often, the one Grace had named the Guardian's Eye. It always appeared at the end of a session, like a signature. "We may be dealing with an artificial intelligence," Lee said, "but ancient, so ancient that its thinking is alien to us." "Or the memory of a mind," Kay added, as if we're speaking to an echo. At the close of the day, Vera delivered a startling conclusion. Fractal encoding level exceeds human perceptual threshold. Multidimensional processing model required. Recommendation: construct polygonal interface for thought visualization. Grace read the message aloud and said just one thing. "We're beginning to understand. This isn't just an artifact. It's a message from those who came before us, and perhaps from the guardians of Mars themselves." Chapter 7. Image from dust. The polygonal interface suggested by the AI Vera was constructed in just 2 days. It was a complex model, merging the fractal structures of the sphere with real-time visual data. Abstract shapes pulsed on the lab screens, and the team worked to extract meaning from the chaos. "He doesn't think like we do," Lee said, watching the ever-shifting patterns. "Every movement is a process. Every glow, a part of the structure." Grace and Kay linked the stream to the neurointerface, attempting to interpret the images through perception rather than conventional analysis. The first attempt brought an unexpected result. "I saw something," Kay whispered. "It was like standing among ruins. Above me, skies, but not like ours. Everything was red, alive, moving. And in the air, a voice. But it didn't speak, it was felt." Grace nodded slowly. "So did I. It felt like a dream, but there was meaning in it. It was speaking to me, showing me a city." The AI recorded a cognitive reaction. The interface was amplifying the experience, and the sphere was adapting. With each attempt, the visions became clearer. Within a day, they captured a fragment of visual stream, the first real image. A landscape appeared on the screen, vast smooth domes under a dusty sky, tall spires, as if fused into the rock, and between them, figures, beings, slender, tall, bipedal, with elongated skulls and black eyes. "These aren't human," Kay said quietly. "They're them," Grace replied. "The keepers. We're seeing their past." The snapshot was archived. The AI confirmed the data came from a nested layer within the sphere, meant only for someone capable of decoding the message. The next fragment was less clear, but unsettling. The city was falling into twilight. The domes darkened. The figures vanished one by one. The final image was of the sky, washed out, with a pale, faded sun. "The planet was dying," Kay murmured. "Or their star. Or they were leaving," Grace added, as if they knew, as if they were preparing. The next day, the sphere changed behavior. Its surface dimmed, the symbols disappeared. The AI detected a drop in activity, as if the object had entered standby mode. "He gave us what he wanted." 2. Lee concluded, "or what we were able to understand. What if these aren't just visions?" Grace asked, "What if it's a message?" Silently, Kay handed her a new image from the sphere's surface. A new symbol was slowly forming. Not a glyph, not a sign, but an almost recognizable image. An arch surrounded by concentric lines. "A portal?" Lee guessed. "Or ancient gates," Kay said. "Not a vault of knowledge. A path. A way through." Late that evening, as Grace reviewed the data, she found an anomaly. One of the fractal layers contained a structure precisely matching the layout of the underground complex where they had discovered the sphere. "This can't be a coincidence. It's a map." They cross-referenced the data, and the pattern led them to a sealed tunnel, beyond which, according to the layout, was another chamber. The next morning, the team prepared an expedition. Using a drill, they breached the ancient barrier. Grace, Kay, and Lee stood at the entrance as the new compartment opened. The air was dry and still. The chamber bore signs of presence, orderly ledges, a platform in the center, and another sphere. But unlike the first, it was dark, smooth as a mirror, with no visible symbols. There was an inscription on the pedestal, not in the keeper's language, but in ancient Egyptian. This says TPSM. Kay read aloud, translating from her tablet. Peace to the one who has found the truth. Egypt. Lee echoed. What the hell is ancient Egyptian doing on Mars? They were here, Grace whispered. Or we were there. She stepped forward and touched the black sphere. A symbol flared across its surface, the familiar eye of the keeper. And in that moment, she understood. This wasn't the end. Was an invitation. Chapter 8. Dust and memory, the darkness of the new chamber hung like a veil. The cold, smooth sphere at its center gave off no light, made no sound. Yet it felt present, as if it were watching. The AI, Vera, registered a faint electromagnetic field, identical in nature to the first sphere, but denser, layered as though wrapped in countless folds of code. Inside, another fractal order lay hidden, more ancient, and sealed. It was waiting to be activated, Lee said. But not by a system. By us. Our presence is the trigger. Grace and Kay focused on the inscription. The AI performed a preliminary linguistic analysis and confirmed that the structure matched late Egyptian writing. Grace studied the signs, as though trying to read not the words, but the memory carved into the stone. It's an epitaph. She whispered, peace to the one who has found the truth. But peace here doesn't mean death. It means return. The sphere activated on the third day. Without warning, Kay had been alone in the chamber, studying the wall reliefs, when the room suddenly filled with a soft, pulsing glow. The air shifted, thick with the scent of dust and something unearthly. Like ozone, with a trace of metal, Kay froze. That a holographic interface bloomed into the air. Not text, but images. Landscapes. Sequences of symbols. Shards of alien thoughts. They came like waves, rolling over her senses, and within those waves, voices. Not sound, but emotion. We were. We built. We waited. But we departed. A panorama unfurled before her. Not of Mars, but another world. Lush, green, a cradle of gardens and towering spires. Then that same world, aflame. And the departure, slow, orderly, like the last breath of a great civilization. It wasn't a disaster. Kay explained later, sharing the data. They chose to leave, as if they had reached a limit, or lost their reason to stay. The AI confirmed that the architecture of the second sphere held a cyclical recording, a recurring motif of civilizational dimming. The cooling of a planetary core, the fading of a sun, the exhaustion of resources, but also something deeper. The will to stop struggling. They turned inward, Grace said. Or ascended. Not physically. In consciousness. In evolution. On their final day at the complex, as the team prepared to return to the orbital station, Lee brought a weathered relief recovered from a collapsed section. It was covered in symbols resembling early Sumerian. These patterns repeat in Sumerian. Cylinders, Egyptian walls, even Aboriginal cave art, he said. Same motif again and again. The eye, the circle, the staircase. We just never saw the connection. Or didn't want to see it. Grace added. She traced the final carving. A circle within another circle. Like planets and their orbits. Like a cycle. Before departure, Kay returned one last time to the dark sphere. It no longer glowed, but in its surface they all were reflected. Silent explorers standing on the threshold of something still beyond their understanding. We came looking for technology, she said aloud. But we found a trace. Grace turned to her. A trace of who we might become. And deep within the sphere, beneath layers of quartz and memory, a symbol still pulsed. The eye, gazing skyward. They left the next day. The complex was designated Object 947 Omega, classified and sealed. But each of them knew this wasn't an ending. It was the beginning of a new kind of archaeology, one not of bones and stones, but of thoughts and voices left among the stars. They were, and we are, following.